Hey everybody, it's Jeff here. So for the part two of the class here, as we move into the second half of CS161B, we're going to get into some more advanced topics, but just as importantly, we're going to be developing on Linux using PCC's Linux server. This is a requirement for you to move on in the program. CS162 uses Linux. And equally important, PSU transfer students, it's also required here. And so this was mentioned at the beginning part of the class. What I want to do is, there'll be two videos for this class that I'm making, plus a couple supplemental things which I'll mention here. But there's a lot of video content that was already created by Professor Iyer and others that I'm not going to redo. So instead, I'm going to walk you through where to find everything, so that you can meet the Linux requirements for Module 6 here, without me basically redoing the same videos here. Okay, so if we go into Module 6 overview real quick, we'll get to this stuff in the second video that I'll make for this module here. But one of the requirements that you have to do for this week's module is you have to complete and submit Linux Lab 1. Okay, so if you go to the next page here, you'll see that we have some Linux tutorials here. So these bullets are kind of the important summary here. We're gonna use the PCC Linux server, and so you're gonna log into the server probably for the first time, and you'll do it as you walk through these videos. Change your password, learn how to kind of create and navigate directories and so on, create a file and compile and run it, and then transfer it to your computer. That's the goal, is for you to be able to do that. Now, Linux is a very powerful operating system that, I guess the best way to compare it to Windows is that it's basically command lines and key codes versus menus and drop downs and moving the mouse around. Right? So both operating systems do all the things operating systems need to do. They manage the file system, they manage task switching, they manage memory allocation, they manage connecting to peripherals, they manage security, and so on. If you think about, what an operating system must do, and in CS201 we cover that in much more detail as an introductory topic. I still remember I took graduate level class just on operating systems, for example. Okay, so the main difference here with Linux, Linux is an open source version of Unix, and that makes it very scalable and actually quite robust because people contribute to it. They make it better, and over the last couple decades, Linux is used a lot more in production environments by large development teams. Okay, so it's a good set of tools for you to learn. Some of you have some experience with Linux already. Great. You are going to want to walk through this set of videos here. The first video is a overall what is Linux, and you could probably kind of scan through that, watch it on 1.5x play speed, and just kind of listen. This is kind of an academic what is Linux. Okay, but the remainder of these are videos that our PCC instructor team has put in place to walk you through the key components of how we're going to use Linux in this class. Okay, including Professor Iyer basically walks through Lab 1, and so you can just do Lab 1 while watching her do Lab 1, much like you can do stuff that I show you in my videos as well. So, like I said, I didn't redo all of these. Okay, I did, and I'll post these in the material here. I've created these two videos. They're redundant, right? But I wanted to create them anyway, kind of show you my expectation on how to log, how to use PuTTY, how to download, install, and log into PuTTY, and how to download and install FileZilla. That's covered. It's covered in here as well, but you can watch these videos instead of or in addition. Okay. And the other thing I need to show you is the Linux manual. I skipped this slide, but I already talked about this. Okay, so the Linux manual, and let me show you where you can find that. You can find that under links, and your page looks different than mine, but there'll be a link to the Linux manual here. You should be able to find it elsewhere, but for sure you'll be able to find it there. It's probably in here somewhere as well in this section. But if we take a look at the Linux manual, the Linux and Vim manual. Okay, so Linux is the operating system. Vim is the text editor that you're going to use. And if you've never used VI or Vim, there's a learning curve. There's a learning curve for Linux as well. Because there's all these keystrokes you have to know to insert text and copy text and move text, because you can't do the stuff you normally do in Windows. Okay, this document is 36 pages, very well done. And you could see, there's a link table of content here, which talks about all the things you need to do this work in Linux. And so this isn't a message that you need to read the manual. Okay, this is a message that I want you to be aware of this 36 pages of content, so that as you watch the videos, you can make notes and say, oh, okay, if I need to transfer files, there's Jeff's video, or it's in this video, or I can get it in the manual. Okay, when you get down into the latter part of this, you can see lots of screenshots. You get down into the latter part of the manual, you're going to see that we have some exercises. And I just recommend you go through this. And so, for example, if I go ahead and bring up a putty session, this over here, right? When already logged in, I started at the home directory by typing CD. You can see I'm already at the home directory. I can type PWD, which stands for Print Working Directory. You can see that this is my working directory. It's going to look different than yours because I'm an instructor, so I'm in a different spot. And instead of having my first name dot last name, I have, the more common up to 8 character, Unix abbreviated usernames here. I can type ls to list what's in my files. There's different parameters for ls, right? I can list in the long version. I can list based on time. You can see that I have some files here. You can see here that I have a few files from this year, and then the last time I was actually on this server was back in 2017, and because I hadn't been teaching any of the Linux-based classes since 2017, right? And you can see that I have some of these classes here, and even the first time I taught CS201 was in 2010. So you can see I have my content here. If there's something you're interested in about one of those classes, I could probably share some of that. But you can kind of follow through this type of stuff on how to make directories, how to move around, how to delete stuff. And clear your window. It doesn't clear it. It moves it to the top of the screen here. Copying files, renaming files, and so on. Okay, the next section is around using the text editor. Again, lots of very specific keystrokes. And if you read this, it's like, what the heck am I doing? Capital G, little gg, etc. What does all that mean? The best way you're going to learn this is by doing it. Okay, and so more Vim stuff. Here's some reference here. Creating backups of your files, using the debugger, compressing files, and so on. Okay, so some of this stuff you may never use, and that's okay. All right, then we go to Lab 1. Okay, in Lab 1, the expectation here is you have basically done kind of everything I've described here. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Sorry about that. I had to quick pause there. The puppy wanted to play for a couple minutes. So you're gonna walk through the practice in chapters 1 and 2 in the manual, and then there's a video Professor Iyer completed. You could just have that video running and pause it and follow it side by side, and just go through. You're basically just going to go through this, almost exact, if not exact. Okay, so if you know this stuff already, great. Read through it anyway to make sure that there isn't anything funny or different about what you're doing here. Okay, so with that, we'll stop this video. My expectation here is you have the resources that you need to be able to complete Lab 1, which will prepare you for being able to do the assignments and the discussions and so on in Linux. As always, questions, comments, let me know.